It's Jaylen Brown rumor watch day 2. Some new information that maybe softens my stance on the whole trade thing. Plus, that Tom Westerholm baits me into a big rant. You're going to hear it all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team. Step back, we gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine. This is the last week of going Monday through Friday for the next couple of months, except when situation warrants. So for now, we're doing 5 days a week this week. This is the Wednesday podcast, and then we'll do 2 more. And then next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is basically going to be the routine for August and September, and then we'll get back into it in October, getting ready for the next regular season. So it'll be a very short turnaround. We'll be back to 5 days a week before you know it. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I'm in my 16th year covering this franchise. And today I am going to continue the conversation about Kevin Durant, about where this whole thing stands. A little bit more information coming out about how real the rumors are. Jayson Tatum has spoken, and there's some other stuff. There's some other stuff that's come out. And to discuss it with me is Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA. Tom, what is up? How are you and your mustache doing?
We're doing well, man. I said it on Twitter. You know, I keep trying things to try to make myself less handsome, and
doesn't work.
I don't know what to do. If anybody has suggestions, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to feed that thing now, or is it like self-sustaining?
Yeah, self-sustaining. I'm green. I'm very green.
For the people who are watching on YouTube, show free, available everywhere podcasts exist. You can subscribe to get the show directly to your device. You can watch the show on YouTube. I am green screening it now. I'm taking advantage of this off season to create an entirely new set. So for those of you who care about such things on YouTube, I will hopefully by the time the season starts have a brand new podcasting studio. So that's going to be fun. For now,
you know I'm going to commit to the same because I want a new setup too. So, and if I say it now, then I have to. So I'm going to have a new setup by the time the season starts too.
Stop copying me, Tom.
No, I simply will not. It won't be as good as yours. I will say that. It will not be as good as yours.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to do a lot of this myself, and it may come out looking like Homer Simpson with the Lisa Florida with Floreda, and it's the couch cushions and all that. That's basically what this might end up being for me. So I don't know. I'm saying all I can promise is that it will be new. I don't know that it will be good. So for now, the green sheet behind me will serve as my studio, and we'll just live with that. All right, let's get to this conversation. Couple of new wrinkles here, couple new little things. Starting with Zach Lowe on the Low Post podcast, talking to Tim Bontemps, who is this past season especially was a regular at Celtics games. This was part of his beat and has as much inside knowledge of the team as anybody.
Yep.
And so a couple of elements here. First thing is Zach made it seem like this whole thing was a little fresher than the Windhorst comments. Windhorst said these are likely a few weeks old, kind of portrayed them as stale. Zach kind of portrayed it as a little fresher than that, not something that happened yesterday or this week when it was reported, but within a past week or so after, prior to that. So I don't know. Does that little bit of information, the fact that the Celtics and the Nets spoke a little more recently than we thought, does that change any of your thinking about what the Celtics might be going for in this?
Is it fair to say no?
I mean, it's
Like,
fair to say whatever you want. It's your opinion.
yeah, like I guess if you the only I guess the thing that's interesting about it, right, is that that there's like it may have happened after they acquired Brogdon, after they did all that stuff, right? That it was like that they may have looked at that. I mean, I still think it's kind of interesting that that they may have offered up Brogdon after, or they may have offered up Derek White after acquiring Brogdon, right? Like
Sure.
saying like, okay, we have like all these combo guards. Like I still think that's kind of interesting, but I mean, realistically, I don't think it changes much. Kind of when this happened, like the Celtics still, reportedly, however you want to phrase it, made an offer or whatever that was. The Nets still reportedly turned that down and wanted more, and the Celtics reportedly said that's too much. And like, I'm not sure that like unless the timing was like in the last couple days and things are like heating up, which does not sound like that's the case. I'm not sure how much it changes for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, and I also think that there's going to be some level of, I don't know. First of all, I think Sean Marks and Brad Stevens are going to be talking anyway,
Mhm.
because Brad is probably going to be, in Sean's ear saying, "Hey, third team over here, third team. If we could use some other help, and depending on who you end up trading the Durant to, maybe a big man shakes free, maybe some
Right.
wing somewhere shakes free, and the Celtics are able to use one of their two remaining TPEs to say, hey, we'll facilitate your trade. We'll help you do your thing, but we also want to do our thing." And, I think that is certainly something, even if Brad Stevens, if the scenario is that Brad Stevens is pissed and he'll call up Sean Marks and be like, "How dare you leak this? Also, keep us in mind. We want to, play ball if you're a third, need a third team." Right? Like, you can't be pissed at these guys for more than like 2 seconds.
Right.
So, um, but if it happened within the past week and it is characterized as a we can do this. We can do Jaylen and Derek White if you want, which I don't know. That could be something serious. It could be Brad again sneaking in and being like, "Hey, uh, we noticed that talks have slowed down. Maybe sneak in and be willing to say, Jaylen, it sucks if we're going to lose Jaylen, but this is 2 years of a bigger window is better than maybe whatever." So I don't know. I'm kind of in the same boat of, I'm not too changed. My opinion doesn't change a whole lot, but softens the stance 2%.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? Because like I think what's interesting is that it means that Brad kind of waited out the initial rush, right? Like of all yeah, or maybe not waited out, right? Like maybe he came back with a counter, right? Like
Mm,
like maybe he called along with everybody else, and Sean Marks was like, yeah, I mean, there's no point talking. Like maybe he called and was like, how do you feel about Rob or something? And this is all speculation, obviously, but maybe he called and said, how do you feel about Rob? And Sean Marks was like, LOL, Jaylen or bust. And Brad was like, all right, we'll get back to you. So like,
mm.
if that's what happened, then that's kind of interesting, right? That Brad like came back to the table. But yeah, I mean, again, I still think that the overriding stance, I guess it would be interesting if this was like the second or third bite at the apple that Brad took,
Yeah.
but we don't know if that's the case. So just based on what we know about from the reporting, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we know that much more at this point.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really strikes me is that Tim Bontemps basically threw a lot of cold water on the report, said he doesn't expect anything like that to happen. And even Zach Lowe was saying, you know, something there was some sort of thing that happened between Boston and Brooklyn. Something happened, but it's still not in a place where either of those guys thinks a trade will happen. So, I mean, I still have to believe that at this point, it was an exploratory conversation, and that's the end of it. We'll continue this because a few GMs kind of gave their opinion on what the Celtics should do, and they would be betting on making a trade. And BetOnline actually listed the Celtics currently as the favorites to land Kevin Durant as of right now. Who knows? Maybe this chatter has gotten a lot of money in on Jaylen and being the right trade package for Brooklyn, but as of right now, BetOnline has Boston as the number one destination. That's what the bettors think. Who knows? Who knows how that's going to go? But I can tell you this, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, combat sports, esports, golf. It's all there at BetOnline, which continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting scores and podcasts, they have you covered. Head on over to BetOnline today, or you can use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Just finished recording Locked On NBA with Jake Madison. You can find Locked On NBA wherever you found this podcast. Rotating hosts all week. I host with Jake Madison on Wednesdays. We talked a little bit of the Kevin Durant, Jaylen Brown stuff. That was part of the conversation. Also talked about Colin Sexton and what he might do as he is just sitting there in restricted free agency. And we even talked a little bit about the Detroit Pistons throwback uniforms coming back. We discussed whether they're real or fake, whether they were hot or not. We're talking about uniform stuff, Tom. What do you think about those Pistons uniforms coming back?
I like them. I don't know. I thought they were cool. I don't, but like, I don't know. Like, why? I
Completely threw you for a loop there.
You did a little bit. I liked the uniforms. I never understand like Twitter's decision to like make a big deal out of certain things. Just it never ceases to amaze me. But yes.
Well, you're gonna love my reaction on Locked On NBA because it was the opposite of yours, plus 10. So, all right, let's get back into
I used to have one of those jerseys. I have no idea where it went, but I had one with the horse and everything.
Yeah. I don't like them. So that's all right. I get it. I'm an old. I understand. I understand my place.
No, but here's the thing: like there's like a mid old, and that's what I am. And I feel like the mid old really wants like all those '90s jerseys back. So
yeah,
I mean, this is not. I don't think this is like me being a young thing.
I get into some of that on the Locked On NBA podcast, but I do think it has to do with when you grew up and the era that you started to really love basketball.
I think that's true.
I think we're how I view 90s basketball is a little different than how people in their 30s view 90s basketball. So that probably fuels a lot of our opinions on that.
But I will say, I do. It's interesting though. I think that's I know you probably don't want to get into this, but that's an interesting point because I really like fell in love with basketball. Like, probably like more like a decade, 15 years ago. So like, I'm not a 90s basketball guy. I thought 90s basketball kind of sucked. And then like, I like kind of got back into it again. Like, I mean, honestly, around like the 2007, 2008, when like that kind of era I felt like that was kind of a turning point for the NBA. But anyway,
okay.
That's a random thought for me.
Sure.
I'm Tom_NBA Karalis, not Tom_Celtics.
Sure. Right. All right. Okay, Mr. Tom_NBA. Well, I will say that according to Zach Lowe, 2/3 of the NBA front office people that he polled would do a deal, would do a Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant deal. Now, that made it seem like there are two camps. There are the NBA folks who are like, hey, look, of course you've got to do it. And then the people on the outside, especially people in Boston who seem to, I think the feeling in Boston, this is completely informal. I understand that I probably am living in a little bit of an echo chamber, and there are a lot of fans. I've tuned out a lot of people who get entirely their Celtics takes from Felger and Maz, and it's just the worst. It's the worst place. You're drinking from a poisoned well there. So I admit that my sense is that people don't want to trade for Kevin Durant because of all of the stuff that I've laid out recently, that he's great now and better than Jaylen now, and I just don't know how much better that he's going to be for how long. Like, I just don't know what that time frame is, and I am afraid of a 34-year-old. I mean, I am afraid of trading a 25-year-old for a 30 or 26-year-old for a 34-year-old. I just don't like. I don't like doing that, especially when I have very high expectations for Jaylen Brown. So, that being said, this feeling in the NBA of you have to do this deal, I wonder if the front office people that everybody goes to, rival execs, we always like, it's become a staple of NBA reporting. Can't get anything from the team? Well, we went to rival execs. And, you know, I wonder if they say the things like, yeah, you got to do that deal, because they know that their jobs hinge on winning a like putting a team in position to win any championship anywhere. And if my argument, and I think my argument is indicative of a lot of the arguments in the don't trade Jaylen camp, is maybe you open a window really, really wide for a championship in year one, maybe even year two of this deal. But how much wider is it than just sticking with Jaylen? How much wider is it? And for how long? How much longer is the window open with Jaylen? And my feeling is you don't open that window so much wider, and you certainly don't open it for as long. And so I think you keep Jaylen and all of that. I don't want to rehash every single argument that I've made. I think rival GMs, which influence a lot of the reporting, they say, well, I think internally, yeah, I would trade for Kevin Durant, because trading for Kevin Durant means I just put a contender out on the floor. And how many of these rival GMs, if you're saying 2/3 of the league or 2/3 of the people that you talk to, well, how many of those people are, only two teams went to the finals. So how many of those teams are sitting there saying like, hey, if it was me, I'd do it? Well, yeah, you might be, a lot further away, and this vaults you into the conversation. And if you make a trade for Kevin Durant and it doesn't work out, you still took the swing, and I don't think anybody blames you for it. That's a great way to keep your job. I feel like there are a lot of answers that people rely on to shape their opinions, and I just wonder if front office people saying, yeah, I'm going to do this because it's something that gives them job security, is really where we should be going with this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you made your GM decisions based on what rival GMs say you should do, you're probably in trouble anyway. I also think to your point, additionally, like those rival GMs are not in or around the Celtics locker room, right? Like they don't like.
Right.
I mean, I don't. It's not like Jaylen. People see, this Celtics team, especially see like as the season went on, obviously, they seemed to like each other. And I know we're going to get into Jayson Tatum's comments at some point here, but like, Tatum coming out and saying, I love our team, like Kevin Durant's great. It's not my job. I love the guys we've got. I mean, like those are not the comments of like you, if you are Brad Stevens and not a rival GM, you have to take stuff like that into account too. Rival GMs don't have to think about that. They can just look at it coldly and say, and again, like I brought this up yesterday, like, it's something I wrote on BDC. I felt like, the pursuit of Kevin Durant would be to me, the cold pursuit of a championship over sort of the more organic, I don't know, like, pursuit of a championship through kind of like that homegrown team. And like for a rival GM, they don't have any attachment to that homegrown team. They don't have any attachment to the, to the 4 guys the Celtics drafted plus Al Horford plus, drafted guys coming off the bench, et cetera, et cetera. The Celtics do. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way. I mean that like, I think that stuff actually matters, right? Like, if you're Detroit, Cade Cunningham means a lot more to you than he would to, any other team in the league. Even though every other team in the league would think that Cade Cunningham is good, Cade Cunningham means a lot to the Pistons because they drafted him and because he's the guy that, they've kind of talked themselves into and they've sold to their fan base and the fan base has talked themselves into. Same thing is true of the Celtics. And, I just think like Jaylen means more to the Celtics than he does to rival GMs. So of course, rival GMs are going to go get Kevin Durant because you can talk yourself into a path where Kevin Durant makes sense. Like you said, that wide open window, that first year or two. Yeah. That makes sense. Like I understand why somebody would want to do that, but if you're Brad Stevens, like the kind of the makeup of the team and the team that you've already put together and, guys having homes in Boston or whatever it is, like all that stuff matters too.
I just find it curious because again, a lot of reporters, you make your contacts, right? You are always talking and you take the numbers and you try to reach out to the Celtics front office and it's radio silence, right? No one's saying nothing.
Sure is.
All right. Okay. Well, let me call, and I'm just throwing just random teams out. Let me call the Charlotte. I know these guys. I know this guy. I got a good relationship with Kobe Altman. I got a good relationship with David Griffin. Let me just make a phone call and see what they say. And yeah, that's great. But and it's certainly an informed opinion in that this is a person who knows what it is to run an NBA franchise. At the same time, it's just the person's opinion.
Right.
And again, those people's opinions of a deal like this, how many of them are to say, well, I have a job. I want to keep my job. So yeah, I would trade for Kevin Durant because if I trade for Kevin Durant and I win a championship right away, boom, I've done my job. I get job security now for the next 10 years. Yep. So yeah, I get that. You make the run for it now and you worry about tomorrow. Totally valid approach because we never know. I'm saying a lot of these things about the future, but I admit a lot of these things that I'm saying does kind of require things to go pretty well. It requires Jaylen to stay healthy. It requires Jaylen to improve at a point to a point where he does pass a declining Kevin Durant and he doesn't just stay at somewhere around the 25th to 30th best player in the NBA, that he climbs into the 15th, 13th, becomes an all NBA guy. It does require some of that. It requires the Celtics to be better. All of that stuff is true, but I can't bring myself to say, screw the long term, do the deal. You just do whatever deal you got to do because it's Kevin damn Durant. You got to go do it. And I'll just throw it to you with this. Is Kevin Durant still at a level, all things considered, taking everything into account, age and everything, is he still the type of guy that you say, you know what, it's Kevin Durant, you just do the deal?
So I think so. But like, I mean, it depends though, right? Like, I mean, it's because like, is he? I think he's still that guy, but I do think that like, but I still stand by my. This is gonna sound weird. I think he is that guy, but I stand by my take that if I were the Celtics, I would just hang on to Jaylen Brown and like, I think that. He is that guy. Maybe he's not quite that guy to that extent. I think if this were, I guess to your point, right? Like in 2016, this wouldn't, if you took 2016 Kevin Durant and you put him in 2022 and you said, okay, Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, I do feel like that's a different conversation,
that's
right? Like
much different conversation.
Completely different conversation, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess the answer is no, but I do still think that he is still like that superstar. It's just more about, when you do have to take age into account, that makes a huge difference. Like yeah, I can't deny, like, I still kind of can talk my way into this deal, but I mean, the age is the big hang up. Like, yeah, he's 34, man. Like, I get it. Like, I'm 33 and my hooping days are way over. So yeah, like it's
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think like obviously that makes a huge difference. And obviously it's a different conversation now than it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So yeah, no, he's
Tough.
it's tough, man. It's
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 tough.
it's a tough conversation.
It's a tough conversation. And I know basing my podcast entirely on Zach Lowe's podcast is kind of like one of those very end of July things to do. But that's what that's the conversation right now. It's very theoretical because Bontemps said, no, I wouldn't do this deal. And he and I are echoing a lot of the same points. I feel the same way about it's. I think Jaylen has much more to do, much more to go, and I think he has a lot to improve. I don't think people who want to trade Jaylen Brown, I don't think people really remember how big the leaps he's been, the leaps that he'd been making are. Like, I don't think I remember I got myself into trouble when I was evaluating Jaylen Brown 3 years ago because I thought, hey, look, if this guy just becomes a 3 and D kind of wing, then I'm good. And I didn't want Jaylen to get out of the corner. I was like, he was really good in the corner a few years ago. And I'm like, keep him in the corner. He's shooting 40 something percent, 50% from the corner. Just let him be that guy who hits those corner threes, defends like a maniac, cuts back door. Celtics will be fine with that because they got Tatum coming up. And at that point, they had, I don't know if it was Kyrie or Kemba or whatever it was. And Jaylen just blew right past that. And it made me realize very early on that I got to stop putting Jaylen in any kind of box because every time I did that, he broke out of it. So I'm not saying that he's going to keep making leaps that big, but he has a history of making leaps. And this year he didn't. And it happened to be the one season where he was coming off of a wrist surgery that cost him his offseason.
Yeah.
So I think having the offseason is going to make him better. And I do believe in the continuity. I do believe in Jason's here, Jaylen's here. They do actually like playing together. That moment after the Miami win, the Game 7 win, them hugging and Jayson saying, they said we couldn't play together. Like they've heard all of that. And when they beat that, they like really kind of soaked all of that in. So that means something to them. And if Jayson Tatum is out there saying, I love the guys that we have, and he's always going to say what he said about, I'm not putting the GM hat on. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I love the guys that we have. That's not nothing.
No,
you don't want to say if Jayson loves the guys that we have, then why mess with that?
I agree. I actually thought that was a not insignificant comment, because it would have been very easy for him to even like, I mean, at the start of the conversation with reporters, he could have very easily just been like, listen, guys, I don't want to talk about, like it's just not my job to talk about, trades and rumors and all that stuff. I don't have any comments on any of that stuff. Like that would have been a very easy thing for him to say. And he mostly stuck to that tact, but he did add a couple of times, I love the guys that we have on this team. Like it wasn't just something that he threw in. Like he said it multiple times. Like that's a pretty significant thing. And, he did say like, I've played with Durant on Team USA. He's one of the greatest, he's a great basketball player, but he was pretty clear. Like, and And I think that's interesting because I do think that there is a Jayson Tatum conversation to be had about Kevin Durant, where on the one hand, I wonder, he does respect Durant. I do wonder, like, if Durant came in, if it would be kind of like okay, Tatum, like, the ball's not in your hands every single time down the stretch anymore. you know, I wonder how much he would like that, because I do think it might save some of his legs, for a game 6 in the
Mhm.
finals, for example. But also, like, Jason Tatum really seems to value being that guy, and seems to, like, see that as, something that he really wants. And if Kevin Durant's here, that's different for him. Jaylen Brown is kind of perfect for him in that way. I mean, I think the Celtics could involve Jaylen a little bit more down the stretch, but, like, like last season, like, Tatum got to do whatever he wanted in the last 3 or 4 minutes of a close game, and it often worked, and, like, that's a pretty cool thing for a young player. I wonder how much, when these rumors started coming out, that he kind of was like, but I really liked what we had last year. I really,
Yeah.
and yeah, like, then when reporters ask him, I really like the guys on our team. Like, I think, it can go a bunch of different ways there, where not only does he like the guys on the team, because I think he does, but also I like my role in connection with the guys on our team.
Yeah. Yeah. That there certainly could be some of that. Um, I,
And
I,
if you're the
I do.
Celtics, that obviously that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't believe that Tatum, I don't believe that Tatum would mind either way. And I think Durant would happily defer as well, because Durant has spent the past couple of seasons just absolutely carrying the 90% of the load for the Brooklyn Nets. I think if he were to move to a situation where he's like, oh, I only have to do 65 or 70% of the stuff. Oh, great. That's amazing. I don't have to yeah, you do more stuff. So I don't know. I feel like Tatum could simply come out and say, look, don't trade Jaylen Brown. I want him here. And like, but that's not Tatum's style.
That's just not how he operates.
He's not going to get involved in
Yeah,
something like that, because he knows the business. He knows the business as much as anybody. And if he says something, and the Celtics do the opposite, then all of a sudden it becomes a referendum on Tatum, and then Tatum becomes the conversation. And at this point, like, I think he understands it. He's savvy. He's a savvy guy,
he is.
and a lot of times people like leave things out on purpose. He's leaving things out, I think, just because he's like, I don't want what might be the blowback if like Brad does something, whatever he does. I don't want to deal with that aftermath. I just want to come play basketball.
I'm very curious. So everybody, like, obviously all these players are super plugged into what everybody's saying on, like, social media, whatever. And there has been a lot of blowback over the last year against GM LeBron, right? Where, like,
Oh
LeBron
yeah.
keeps, and, like, I think players probably see a lot of that. And I wonder how much, like, that's going to affect them being like, hey, you should go get this guy. Hey, you should not trade this guy, whatever. Like, I wonder if they're just going to kind of take a step back and be like, that's not my job. Like Tatum said, it's not my job to be the GM. It's not my job to make trades. If you're Tatum, I think it's kind of smart to not want to be GM LeBron, because GM LeBron assembled a bad Lakers team,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and he's getting kind of rightfully, clowned for that, right? Like,
Yep.
like that group doesn't work. And you know, Tatum, if you're Tatum and you're just kind of like, trade for Durant if you want, he's great. I don't know. I like the guys we have. I think that's a perfectly defensible position of just of kind of that kind of forced ambivalence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also, I don't know of anybody that actually thinks this trade's going to happen. Like,
Right. That's the
for
other
all of the
thing. Yeah.
conversation that we've had, so much of it is theoretical, and we're giving the reasons for why something that probably isn't going to happen shouldn't happen. And I would think that Jason's probably well aware of that as well. No reason to go out there and be like, I'd love to play with Durant, and then have to face that uncomfortable situation like later. And JB's like, I can wear his jersey if you want in practice. If you're so in love with Kevin Durant, I could do that for you. Now, I you know, so I don't know. I think ultimately this has been great for me
Yeah.
because it's given me 2 days worth of content at a time where we might have been scouring people's Instagram pages for
Oh
some sort
yeah.
of topic, to talk about.
Lewis had to come up with like a series. Like
I know.
all right, here's the let's go through the depth chart.
I would have had to
Which we'll
think.
get to, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, depth charts. Oh, sure.
That's coming.
Absolutely. It's August and September are still happening, so
Yeah, right.
they have not been eliminated from the calendar. So we'll still have plenty of podcasting to do, but do appreciate the Nets and Sean Marks. Basically, Matt Moore at HP Basketball on Twitter, who hosts Tuesday Locked On NBA, said it best. I think that Sean Marks just basically announced to the NBA the deal that he rejected and said, "Oh, we were offered Jaylen Brown and Derek White, and I said no." That's basically the crux of the reporting.
Yeah.
And as I've been saying all along that he's been trying to stoke the flames, that puts it a little bit more of a clear place that he sends the message to other teams. Maybe not that the Celtics are players right now, but that when they called and this was the topic, I was like, no, not interested. So not only is a Jaylen Brown thing happening, or could it happen, I said, no, don't want that. I want more. And that's trying to set the market. So
Right,
it's that.
setting the market to where it's okay, Jaylen Brown is an acceptable starting point, but I also want all this other stuff. Like
Yes.
telling everyone else, like, yeah, like I want,
Yeah.
yeah, of course I want, of course I want your star. I also want your draft pick and your best role player and your
Yep.
best guy off the bench. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't know why I had to use the Celtics to do. He could have done that to the Pelicans. Why Boston? Why Boston?
The Pelicans have more picks too.
They have plenty of picks. I think the Pelicans have the best deal, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway. All right. Well, thank you, Sean Marks, for day 2 of BS trade commentary. Let's maybe tomorrow will be day 3 if a new nugget falls from somebody's basket, but I doubt it. We'll see.
I did want to ask you before we go, unless you want to save this for tomorrow's pod, but
Tease.
given your railing against sports talk radio, I was curious if you saw the Athletics report that about Jaylen being, quote, perplexed that a certain WEEI anchor had said Jaylen told me he's not resigning, and Jaylen per this report being like, what? Like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I thought that
Yeah.
was very funny.
Okay. I cannot resist this.
I knew it. I just wanted to wind you up.
Resist. I cannot. That is just catnip, baby. I'm just all
Chum
in.
in the water for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, of course. You mean to tell me that Jaylen is going to tell some former tight end that's on the radio, like, oh yeah, no, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. But I'm not coming
Since
back.
we're boys, we
Yeah.
can talk about that.
You played a professional sport, so I can tell you. I know that you're on the radio and you're supposed to talk about all kinds of things. I'm just going to assume that you know this is off the record, but shh, I'm not coming back. And then what does he do? He's like, "Oh, I heard." But this was the thing that made me not, and I'm not even using his name, not give any credence to that report, because what he said on the radio was, Jaylen told me in not so many words that he wasn't coming back, which means Jaylen didn't say
Right.
that he's not coming back. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know. I was out in the Hamptons and Jaylen said in not so many words that he's not coming back. You're like, okay, buddy. Nowhere else has that ever been reported. Nowhere else has that been even an inkling of that. Even Shams said there's no hint or signs of any displeasure in Boston. Like everybody, Bontemps on the Zach Lowe podcast said, everything I hear is that Jaylen likes it here.
Yep.
And it's all fabricated crap. It's crap until he demonstrates something. The only thing that Jaylen Brown has actively demonstrated is a disdain for the media. And that media exists.
And like to tweet against Celtics fans. I'll keep bringing it up.
Right. Then he's that he was underappreciated.
Yes, right. That he was underappreciated. Yeah, that's much more accurate. Yes.
Yes. He liked a tweet that said he was underappreciated.
Yeah.
Which I would also, if somebody said John Karalis is underappreciated, I will like that tweet. Of course I am. People should love me more. Of course. I like that tweet. So I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to believe anything that comes out of the mouths of a sports talk radio hot take host.
And the thing that I like, the part of the reason I bring that up is because if you are a hot take artist, that's kind of a smart bet to hedge, right? Because if he leaves, you can be like, see, told you. I told you that he talked to me. And if he doesn't leave, you can just kind of hope it goes away. So this is my attempt to make sure that if Jaylen Brown does not leave, that this does not go away.
No, if he stays, then it's like
fire,
it's like he was upset. He was upset after the finals, and he was a little pissed off, but things worked out. Things smoothed out a little bit.
But he told me that things.
He told me,
in not so many words.
In not so many words, he said. But when I say in not so many words, I mean in no words. I'm just assuming that this is what he would tell me in not so many words, that he is now happy here because the Celtics are better. But in not so many words, he did tell me before in no words that he's leaving. I mean,
I call that perplexing. I also am perplexed.
It's perplexing is a good word.
It is. It's a good word.
I am never accused of saying anything in not so many words. I am the man of too many words. That's
shout out to the Athletic. Shout out to Jared Weiss for allowing me to chum the waters that much for you. I just needed to. I needed to give you the chance.
Yeah. I think sports talk radio is just dying. Look, I can go into a whole thing, and maybe this will be a whole podcast. We can still turn this into a whole podcast.
It's only July 27th.
I mean, there's August and September, which still exist. Now, in not so many words, they've told me that they exist. So, we'll see. But there are plenty of good people in sports talk radio. There are plenty of people who do a good job and have interesting conversations. That it's not the genre, it's not the industry as a whole, but it's an industry that's ripe for people with no talent who are absolutely talentless, whose only ability is a willingness to say things that are outrageous. And that's not talent. That is not being good at your job. That just means you have no soul and you're willing to just say whatever in an effort to get people to call in and yell at you. And you don't care about people yelling at you. That's nice. That's a nice trait to have in sports talk radio. But when you have no talent for maintaining a conversation, bringing up interesting points, and making a point, a salient point in an interesting way, if you can't do any of that stuff, then it's very easy to say, oh, I heard in not so many words that this is the case. So
I got exactly what I wanted out of that.
Yeah. That's fun. You can tell who I respect and who I don't.
I can. Yes. Yeah.
I respect every single person listening and watching. I also greatly respect this man right here, Tom Westerholm.
Hey, I
I do.
appreciate you.
I do genuinely love and respect Tom Westerholm, who is a very good person and good at his job. Talent. You have talent, sir.
Thank you, John. You do as well.
Thank you. That I was just fishing. I didn't mean any of that. I was only fishing for the
In not so many words.
In not so many words. You know, you're okay. All right. You're out of time.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Bye. It's my shout out to the Smartless podcast. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Hope you're enjoying this is again a temporary green screen. You can kind of see like the Force ghost. I kind of tune that in a little bit better around my hands. Is like I'm like a dead Jedi. But hopefully by the start of the regular season, I will have for the YouTube watchers a new something for to make it a little bit better. Look, you people watching and listening have made this the #1 Boston Celtics podcast in the world, and it's by far. And I am so thankful to everyone here for making this your go-to place when something like this happens, when something like Jaylen Brown comes up in rumors, the numbers spike greatly and frankly put me in a spot where somewhat competitive with actual sports talk radio ratings in those demographics. Just putting that out there. That's how many people turn to this podcast for their information and hopefully a little bit of entertainment. So my way of repaying you is to maybe give you something a little bit better visually. And so I will invest in putting a new studio together for, to make this even better and start that next season on a real high note. Could be a championship season. Could be a championship season with Jaylen Brown as the starter and one of the pillars. So we'll see. We're doing this show for the rest of the week, Monday through Friday, and then next week it's a 3-day-a-week podcast, unless the circumstances warrant more podcasting, in which case I will be very happy to podcast on one of those off days if something big breaks, because that's what we do here. So subscribe. It's the best way to do it, because that means whenever you open up that podcast app, whichever one you use, it will be there. You will see it. Also, subscribe on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that bell so you get notified when I drop a new video. Then you know that I've dropped a new podcast. And also like, rate it, comment, all the stuff that feeds the algorithm. And share the podcast. Tell your friends, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.